So, Star Trek Strange New Worlds debuted this week. Actually, it debuted yesterday from the day I'm recording and probably releasing this. I thought it was terrific. Really good start to the new series. Nice to see Ensign Mount back as Captain Pike. Nice to see Ethan Peck and Rebecca Romaine back as Spock and Number One, respectively. And the new cast members that we've gotten to have at least get an impression of so far all seem really promising. Just a really, really encouraging beginning to the show. And if you want to see more about my thoughts on it, you can watch my review of episode 1. That'll be the previous video in this playlist because this is going in the Strange New Worlds reviews playlist. So I'm not going to say anything more about the episode specifically than what I said in my review, other than what I already said. I thought it was a really good start. But also, unfortunately, it is a reminder that there's just no pleasing some people. You know, there's no pleasing some people. I know that some folks who have been fans of my Star Trek content for a while were a bit put off by the fact that I really didn't like the just completed second season of Star Trek Picard, because I do feel like there is a segment of the Star Trek fan base that just don't want anyone to be critical of it at all. You know, like, because, I mean, I love Star Trek, but I am not uncritical of Star Trek, nor have I ever been. And I'm not just going to watch Star Trek and turn off my brain and just love everything that I see no matter what just because it's Star Trek. That's not how I watch anything. But there are also fans in the fan base who are the other side of that coin, who are not, it's not that they're critical of everything, it's that they reflexively just don't like anything that doesn't meet whatever preconceived expectations they have in their mind. And a lot of those expectations are preconceived on the basis of some pretty shitty assumptions. Like, on my review of episode 1 of Strange New Worlds, it's only been up for about a day. I've already had to remove a bunch of comments from people who are like, it's too woke. It's better than Discovery. It's better than Picard, but it's just, it's so woke. I don't understand why they have to keep putting their leftist politics into everything. Here's my favorite. Someone actually noticed that other than Pike and Spock, the bridge crew that we see on the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds is entirely made up of women, other than Pike and Spock. First of all, number one, good, that's great to see gender representation like that, right? I have no problem with it whatsoever. Number two, I honestly didn't even notice. If I had noticed, I would have thought, oh, neat. Nice to see they're making an effort to have women represented on the show in a positive way. Like, I would have thought it was a good thing if I had even noticed it. I didn't notice it. If I had noticed it, I certainly wouldn't have marked it up as something to complain about because I'm not a fucking neurotic sexist loser. You're Star Trek fans, right? I'm not trying to gatekeep, not doing the no true fan thing. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. But as a Star Trek fan, I have to ask, what Star Trek show have you been watching? If you watch Strange New Worlds and you're like, oh God, it's so woke, it's so leftist, it's so political, why are there so many women? What Star Trek show have you been watching that doesn't make a point of being diverse in its casting, that doesn't make a point of being not only political, but progressive in its politics? That has always been Star Trek. These fucking douchebags who are like, well, back in the day it was always political, but they never hit you over the head with it. It was always subtle, and they didn't take sides. What Star Trek show have you been watching? Do I need to point out, let that be your last battlefield in the original series, the half black, half white dudes? That's your idea of subtle political commentary? Or a private little war, one of the many episodes that referenced Vietnam, and that's probably the most obvious reference to Vietnam, because aside from the fact that they don't actually say Vietnam War, they call them the Brush Wars instead of saying the Vietnam War, but there's a scene with Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy where they're talking about the conflict between the Federation and the Klingons and how they're getting involved in this proxy war on this small planet where there are each major power is arming one side or another in this conflict and carrying on a proxy war. And Captain Kirk almost verbatim says to McCoy, gee, this situation we find ourselves in is a lot like Vietnam, huh? He doesn't say Vietnam, he says brush wars, but that's literally what he says. He draws direct attention to the allegory. That's subtle political commentary for you? What about the ending of the Omega Glory? When Captain Kirk is talking about the literal United States Constitution, not the Federation Charter, not some other document that was invented as an allegory or an analog for the Constitution, the actual United States Constitution. He's reciting the preamble of the actual United States Constitution, and he's saying the words in this document must apply to everybody. Not one side or another side. If the principles expressed in this document don't apply to everybody, then they are meaningless. That's your idea of subtle political commentary, you oblivious fucking douchebag? So, I know that it's nothing new, but it's still aggravating that even if you show them a Star Trek show that at least as far as the first episode goes, seems to have dealt with a lot of the problems structurally, etc., that have plagued Picard and Discovery. You know, it's a standalone episode. It doesn't seem like they're going to try to drag one story out across 10 episodes. It's one story per episode, right? Really likable characters, really fun, fast-paced, feels like a classic Star Trek episode, feels like it could have been a TOS episode or a TNG episode, but updated, feels modern at the same time as it feels familiar. Like, it's really, really well done. And a really great job of doing Star Trek, but updating it and doing it in a way that's fresh and new and feels of this moment, but also feels like Star Trek. But all they see is, oh God, look at all the women. And, oh, the politics are so woke and leftist. What show have you been watching? Because the fact that you apparently are too fucking oblivious to have picked up on the fact that Star Trek has been ardently political and progressive in those politics since the very beginning doesn't mean that it's not so. Because it is so. That is part of what Star Trek is. It had always been political. It has always taken sides in its political arguments, and it has always been progressive and a voice for tolerance and equality and diversity and inclusion. That is as much a part of Star Trek. That is as much in its bones as exploring strange new worlds. You can't separate it from the show. It is part of what it is. And even bad Star Trek has recognized that. Even Picard, as clumsily as it was done, as pointless as a lot of that, it at least made a fumbling attempt to touch on some relevant political issues and to say something about it. I think it did a really, 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 really bad job, but at least it tried, because that's what Star Trek does. That's part of what it is. And Strange New Worlds does that in its first episode. Probably won't do that in every single episode because Star Trek never was overtly political in every single episode or movie it ever made. But that's always there. That's always a part of it. That's always in the fabric of it. It's been that way since it started. And the fact that you're too fucking oblivious to have noticed it is not Star Trek's fault, is not Alex Kurtzman's fault, is not Kirsten Byers' fault, is not the fault of anybody who is a writer or producer on the current shows. That's your fault, you fucking dipshit. And if it really bothers you that much, go watch something else. Here's an idea. Go watch whatever imaginary fucking Star Trek show you think you've been watching all this time, that you're still getting mad about this shit in the year 2022. Go do that. Fuck off and have a nice day. And actually, don't worry about the second part. And just to be clear, the fuck off and have a nice day thing was directed at those assholes I was talking to when I kind of went into a rant there at the end. All of you lovely people who are not whining about how woke Strange New Worlds is. I sincerely hope you all have a wonderful day.